Sisterhood. I'm Carrie, and today we are talking part 6 of our book club, The Courage to Be Disliked. This is the 5th night in the book, and I'm going to do the first half today, and I'll probably do the second half tomorrow. But thought I would hop on because we are plugging. We're plugging away at this book. It's been, I think this is part 6. And it's one of those books where you read a little bit at a time and then it's helpful to discuss after. So let's get into it. And then at the end of this chat, I'll also talk about what book we are going to be reading in June, which my goal is to actually have that live next week. So let's get to it. The Courage to Be Disliked. This is the front half of the 5th night. And he's talking about really community in this one, and talking about the way that somebody gets to community, which when someone is able to really feel and be a part of community, that they're able to be more in tune with themselves, they're able to feel more fulfilled, and they're also able to think about things outside of themselves, right? So, and really there's 3 parts or 3 things that someone needs in order to really feel community, according to this book. And this book is based on Adler's psychology. And so I'm talking about this, I'm going to do my best to take the Adler perspective and then apply it to things that those of us who are childless not by choice might gain helpfulness from. So in order to hit that feeling of community, Adler really talks about really there needing to be 3 components. And first of all, that feeling of community is that it's all right to be here, that you inherently belong in the greater community. As we talked about in our last session, he really talks about it not in terms of a bunch of silos of communities. For example, the community of motherhood, the community of being a part of this sport, the community of being have this color hair or whatever, right? Not that it can't be helpful to have some of those communities. However, ultimately, we are all a part of the greater community of humanity. And that's ultimately what he would say we would need to focus on. So let's talk about the 3 components that Adler says you need in order to experience and feel community, which is moving from the sense of I to the sense of others. And here they are. 1 is self-acceptance. 2 is having confidence in others. And 3 is contributing. So those are the 3 elements that if you're feeling like you have less community, that Adler would tell you you really want to focus on and think about. Community is that feeling of it's okay to be here, no matter who you are. And so that kind of lends itself as why self-acceptance might be that first thing. So again, community is about, on page 209, community is about making the switch from attachment to self or self-interest. It's making the switch from attachment to self to concern for others or social interest and gaining a sense of community feeling. And these 3 things are needed at this point: self-acceptance, confidence of others, and contribution to others. So we're going to talk about those 3 things today and how Adler conceptualizes those and maybe even defines those. With self-acceptance, according to Adler, if you cannot, self-acceptance is essentially accepting that you cannot do something. And when you are able to accept that, then you can move on easier, right? You're not getting stuck in all the things that you can't do, but you're able to accept this is the reality. And so now I can move on. For me, I think that was very helpful when I was going through kind of the difficult parts of, coming out of the difficult parts, I think more of childlessness, is there's a long period of it, particularly when your childlessness isn't due to infertility, that that you have a lot. You feel like it's your choices. You can make something different. You can force an issue. A lot of it is under your control. You can extend things. And ultimately, that then kind of leaves us stuck in a lot, for me, a lot of kind of why me's, negative places. If only you would have done this, maybe regrets, things like that. And this is why Adler at the very beginning kind of talks about it's not about the past, it's about the present. Like you have to sort of put a period at the end of that, recognize you cannot change anything that happened before. And so now we're moving forward. And part of that is self acceptance. I have to accept that this is the situation that I'm in. Because if I don't, I won't then start to look for the things that I can change in order to make things better. He also talks about, again, focusing on what you can change. In the therapy world, we talk a lot about controlling the controllables, particularly around anxiety. That comes up a lot, but I think it can come up in lots of different places. Listen, there are things you cannot control, and so start focusing on what you can, because that's the only way you can move the needle. Now, Adler might say those of us who stay focused on all the things we can't control, we have a false belief, or we have, I think he called it a human lie. Let me see if I can find that. What did he call that? Something, I know it's some type of like lie, living lie, human lie, harmony lie, maybe. Anyway, if you've read the book, you can go look for it. But really kind of talking about it's important to focus on the things that you can change, because otherwise you start believing a lot of false beliefs. And when you start believing a lot of those false beliefs, you get stuck in that place. Like I was saying before, Adler might say one of the reasons that you stay in a false space could be because what if you try and work on it and it fails? What if you try and work on it and it doesn't work? And for a lot of people, that's a big effing risk to take, right? Is to try something and it not work out. And so sometimes the hope of, well, I could change this if I really wanted to, if I did these things, but not doing it, you allow your brain to kind of latch onto some of those hopes. I'm not saying it's healthy. All I'm saying is it is a way to continue to hope for something that may feel really, really terrifying. So, and again, this is where he says, have the courage to change what one can change. That is self-acceptance. When I just talked about, it can be very terrifying to go out there and do something different. And it does take a lot of courage. And I like that he uses the word courage, because I think that explains and gives people just a reminder that even though something might seem, quote, simple, even though I don't think this is simple, it doesn't mean it's easy. It takes a lot of heavy lifting. In fact, in this book, he kind of talks about really like doing a lot of these things habitually can take a very, very long time, because for many of us, we are completely reversing mindsets and thought patterns that we've been perfecting for a really long time. And we've chosen or done these certain mind shifts or kept these certain mind shifts because they've worked for us in some ways. I do think, and a lot of it is self-protection and risk aversion. I really underlined this point in the book because sometimes a false belief that people have is that they cannot change, right? I cannot change. I cannot change. I can't make this different. I think sometimes in the childless community, it's like, I cannot feel different because this is such an immense thing that I'm dealing with. And I can't change society around it, which is true. But the idea is, he would say, we don't lack the ability to try and make this better or to make this change, but we can lack the courage to do that. And he says it all comes down to courage. And so what I wrote is it's the courage to change what one can change, right? And that's through your beliefs. So I can change my beliefs around my self-talk, around not having children, but I cannot change the fact that I don't have kids. And so it's trying to hone in on those beliefs and changing what I'm telling myself it means that I don't have kids. If we use this channel as an example. Hello there in the chat. So that's the talk about self-acceptance, right? And accepting who you are, accepting the reality of who you are, accepting what you cannot change, and reminding yourself that all the things that we need other people to do to change, that's not your task. That's their task. You focus on your tasks. And focusing on the things that you can move and that you can change, that helps you move out of feeling stuck. Because when you start focusing on other people's tasks, you start getting stuck because you ultimately cannot change that. You cannot move that. So this second thing in terms of community is confidence in others. Yeah, when one is switching from attachment to self-concern for others, the second key concept is confidence in others becomes absolutely essential. The basis of interpersonal relations is founded not on trust, but on confidence, according to Adler. And confidence, in this case, is doing without any set conditions whatsoever when believing in others. Like, I read that as I'm going to assume positive regard within reason. Like, so when I think about it in terms of childless not by choice, like having confidence that I am a part of the larger community, having confidence that I can find support, having confidence that I can support others, having confidence that we as a group can be a part of healthy things for each other. The opposite of confidence, he says, is doubt. And so when you put doubt in the foundation of interpersonal relationships, which I think a lot of us do, it can make sense why that would not feel fulfilling and why that would be really difficult, right? If you're doubting that you're seen, you're doubting the basis of the relationship, you're doubting other people's actions or intentions, right? It would be very hard to then feel like you're in community and then to feel like you're feeling seen. You'd have your guard up. You'd be on guard all the time. We would expect others to judge us for, in the childless not by choice community, maybe because of childlessness. If we are going to doubt that everyone we come in contact with is going to have a judgment around us, think about how that is going to play out for you long term. It's going to be very hard. Now, the hard part about this, where I would shove back a little bit here, is the issue is that you get some proof. Some people do say things that are doubtful. I think in the childless not by choice community, we kind of hear it on an individual level, and then we also hear it on like a group level, and then we hear it even a little bit on a government level, right? So it's hard when you do have there are legs to stand on in terms of having doubt around that. What would Adler say to that? Well, then you need to change your belief and remind yourself that feeling and beliefs that those people have, that are their feeling and belief, not yours. Stop worrying about what they're going to say and do, is what he would say. Focus on you, because that's what you can control. Logically, I buy that. It's just really hard to put in place, right? It's really hard to operationalize. The key to, this is on page 215. He says, the key to understand Adlerian psychology is simple. Right now, you are thinking, if I were to have confidence in someone unconditionally, I would get taken advantage of. However, you are not the only one who decides whether or not to take advantage. This is the other person's task. Like, I don't get to decide if someone's taking advantage of me because I have full confidence in him. Adler is saying that is their task to decide whether or not they're going to take advantage. All you need to do is think, what should I do? If you are telling yourself, I'll give it to him if he isn't going to take advantage of me, it is just a relationship of trust that is based on security or conditions. So that's not full confidence. It's hard to separate tasks. Sounds so easy. He goes on to talk about how if you're constantly in doubt, right, you're going to look for things to prove the doubt because you're going to be on guard a lot. Like, you're going to want to self-protect. He talks about you would be able to find an abundance of evidence for things in order to prove a false belief sometimes. And so go in with confidence versus doubt because you'll find doubt. Again, the hard part about that is, well, yeah, but then what happens when I get taken advantage of? And again, that's where he goes back to, that's not your thing, that's theirs. Separate the tasks. Start putting other people's stuff back onto them. On page 217, he says, right now you are only concerned about the times you were taken advantage of and nothing else. So for those of us who are like, yeah, I have all this proof of these ways in which someone didn't respond well, or someone made me feel bad, or someone was a jerk, he would say, you're focusing on those. You focus only on the pain from the wounds you sustained on each occasion. But if you are afraid to have confidence in others, in the long run, you will not be able to build deep relationship with anybody because you're always going to be assuming doubt, and then you start looking for it because you want to keep yourself emotionally safe, for lack of a better word. I know. I know. It's not easy. So in that case, it's like, look for the things that are positive. Look for the supports. Look for the benefits. Look for the good qualities. Allow yourself to take that risk. Unconditional confidence in other people, that is confidence in others. And so when you have that, when you develop it, then you have comrades or friends, is how I read that. Having other people as one's comrades connects to finding refuge in the community one belongs to. So one can gain the sense of belonging, that it's okay to be here. So you have to have self-acceptance. You have to have confidence in others, which helps you build relationships, having friends, essentially. And then once you have that, then this sense of community can develop, that you have a place here. So on 220, he would say, in other words, you're saying that to feel, it's okay to be here, one has to see others as comrades, and that to see others as comrades, one needs both self-acceptance and confidence in others, right? Otherwise, you're in a scenario in which you're in competition with somebody else, you're in fear of judgment around somebody else, or you're looking for praise, or you're looking for somebody else to fulfill something in you. If you don't have that self-acceptance. And then if you have doubt in your relationships, you're going to be looking for things to be on the lookout for or watch out for, versus confidence, which means you'll be able to find the really good, fulfilling things, and then a sense of community develops. And that's, he says, where we're contributing to others. He would say on 220, we are truly aware of our own worth only when we feel that our existence and behavior are beneficial to the community. That is to say, when one feels I am used to someone. And I think there are some more like individual societies in the world and more like community-based societies in the world. I live in the United States, which is definitely more of an individualistic society in the world. And I can't speak for other places, but I will say there's definitely um, a huge impact on a lack of community feeling. Mental health stuff is through the roof, violence, all of those things. And it's not always about like competition of resources, it's about disconnection. So harmony of life is really what he starts talking about with this helps to bring harmony of life, where we have a balance across different spheres and across different aspects of our life. Sometimes when we're in disharmony in our life, we're focusing on one thing. In the book, he really talks about being a workaholic. I will say this chapter probably is one I'll go back and read a little bit more. And I relate to in that I think I definitely slipped into workaholicism, for lack of, if that's how you pronounce it, because it was a place that I could kind of hide from this other stuff that Heather is talking about doing, right? Like coming face to face with how I can help myself, or particularly the grief around childlessness, right? Like I overly paid attention to this one aspect because it's where I was getting all of the positive stuff. And when you're out of alignment in that, you have disharmony in life. And yeah, I could vouch for that. Oh, shit. So a person who is lacking in harmony of life will see only the one person he dislikes and will make a judgment of the world from that. So I bring this up in the Childless Not By Choice community because I'm a part of it. I am a strong advocate for this community. And I do sometimes wonder, I'll speak for me. In the book, he talks about, if there's 10 people and one person strongly dislikes you, 2 people strongly like you, and the rest of the people are more neutral. If you're not in harmony with yourself or in life, you will focus on that one person, and then you will globalize that. Even though you have all this evidence to the contrary, you will focus on that one person, and you will make their belief like the world belief. Those of us in the Childless Not By Choice community, I think we come up against people who can say really rude shit, right? Stuff that is not helpful, rude, blaming. And what Adler would say is there's also this large community of people that don't do that. And then there's even more people who probably aren't out there actively being judgmental around it. They might even be supportive in the way they know how, but it doesn't always land well because they don't know how. And yet, the smaller percentage of people that are real a-holes around it are the ones that we attach to and then globalize across society. I would say that's because it's extremely painful and they're essentially attacking something that, like, I would say it gets exhausting to kind of be like, hey, homie, I know you're talking about this thing that you know nothing about. Not quite sure why you're talking about it. And let me kind of explain it to you a little bit more. And that gets exhausting, right? So then eventually we're just like, you're an idiot. Okay, so this is where I'm closing it out today. And on page 231, he writes, does one accept oneself on the level of acts? Meaning the things that I can do. Do I accept myself because I can work really hard? Do I accept myself because I'm a parent or not a parent? Like, do I accept myself based on the fact that I make a certain amount of money? Or on the level of being, which is I accept myself because I'm a being in this world. If you're religious, you might say, I accept myself because I'm a child of God. And it's not about how much money I make, or am I a parent or not a parent? Do I have a partner or not a partner? Do I have this job title or not? And when you start accepting yourself on those things, it's a problem, right? If one of those things falls apart or doesn't happen. And so a more stable foundation is accepting yourself on the basis of being. And when you have self-accepted yourself and you have confidence in others and you're contributing, you can do that a little easier. And then he says, this is truly a question that relates to the courage to be happy. Right, so we're going to accept ourselves on the fact that we are a being and a part of the world versus on our actions, our titles, or our labels. And again, I think it's hard, right, when we carry so much beliefs and lies in order to self-protect and cope. And when you're a part of something that people feel like that they want to deter people from engaging in, like not having kids, then it's a lot to combat. And he would say, listen, you combat that by reminding yourself that that's that person's task to deal with, not yours. All right. So a little cliffhanger, a little nerdy cliffhanger is the chapter that for our next one that I'll start up is You Can Be Happy Now. It's the last, so it's on page 232, and then the last page I think is like 270. So we have about 40 pages left. I'm going to try and read it today and tomorrow. I might do the live tomorrow. And then the next book that we're reading, you can tell when I was choosing these that I was on a bit of a self-help kick, is Fuck It, Be at Peace with Your Life Just As It Is. So kind of along those same lines, the same threads. We have a couple of open book club slots, like the last 3, I think, months of the year. So let me know what you would like us to read, particularly if you're like, hey, I love this self-help stuff, but it's feeling a little heavy. Let's get into something a little lighter, and I'm completely open to that, particularly as we move into the holiday time of year. Fiction, again, is completely acceptable for the book club too. And I hope everybody has a good rest of your Sunday. Thanks for hanging out. And I think we have one more book club left for one more book club live for The Courage to Be Disliked. And I'll try and do that tomorrow. All right. Thanks for watching. Follow Sonder Sisterhood for content with a single, childless not by choice person. Have a good one. Let me show you Gavin. I got to. All my regulars on here come to expect it.